After the spar with Safi, Atesh went back to his room that they had assigned him so that he could rest for a while. Since it was the first time that he was away from his family, he was curious as to what it was like. Laying on the bed, he couldn't help but think about his mother and sister. He would always take him to places to play in the city. Not a single moment was wasted. He kind of missed his cheerful big sis. While his mom was serious, she is quite lax too. He understood that she is dealing with her own trauma along with being busy, so he didn't blame her for being away. But whenever she was with him, it brought him much joy. Seeing the care in her eyes brought him more warmth than any flame could. Thinking back to them, he smiled and sat up. He wondered what he should do. Maybe I write what Big Sis calls a diary. I'll tell them about what I experienced here. Looking around the room, he couldn't find any pieces of paper for him to use, nor could he find anything to write with. His inventory was filled with things that Ian needed so naturally. Writing supplies were missing. Furrowing his brows, he left his room to ask for some help when he noticed a maid waiting outside. I am a maid assigned to help you with anything you may need. Of course, that includes using me too. She bowed while eyeing him. Tilting his head for a moment, Atesh's eyes brightened. Seeing this, the maid couldn't help but feel excited. Then you can help me get some paper and a pen. I was wondering who to ask, but since you're here, you can help me with that. Atesh smiled happily as the woman paused for a moment. Excuse me, Emin, I need a pen and paper. I know that everyone uses phones and tablets, but I gave mine to Big Sis, so I don't have them on me right now. She wanted to play some games after Big Sis Lisa confiscated her phone, so I lent her mine. So if you don't mind, can you get me paper and a pen, please? Atesh explained as the woman felt a little offended. She was definitely a beauty by her standards. She kept her figure good and made sure her skin was flawless, and yet this man in front of her was only concerned about pen and paper? Hello? I thought you were a maid to help me. Is this task too hard? Atesh frowned, seeing her stand in silence. No, of course not. Please excuse me. The woman bowed before leaving, feeling both offended and disappointed. Strange woman. What does she even mean by use her? I can't write with her now, can I? Atesh muttered in confusion. Unless she was a robot. He doubts he could pick her up and write with her as if she's a pen. Though if they were talking about blood, that might work. Maybe she's suicidal. While everyone has their own problems. Atesh shrugged before entering his room again. Meanwhile, Ian was eyeing the maid with dangerous thoughts and a finger over the trigger. But since she hasn't done anything just yet, she was free to live another day. ####. I wonder how Addie's doing right now. Shiro muttered while leaning her head on the desk. I'm sure he's doing fine. Plus, isn't Ian looking after him? Nantion chuckled as Shiro nodded. True, but it's the first time my darling son has been away from us for so long after all. I wonder if they're feeding him good food. Shiro said as she pouted slightly. She wasn't in the mood to work since all she could think about was if they were giving Atesh the treatment he deserves. Naturally, that means treating him like a king. Do you want me to take that stack of documents too? Nantion asked, seeing Shiro laze around. Hearing this, Shiro's eyes lit up. Sure. Pushing her unfinished work to him, she sat up and enjoyed her juice. Seeing this, Nantion chuckled and started to finish the work in her place. Most of them were just documentation of the tasks that Misu had completed. They needed to document everything so that they could keep a track on the history of the things that happened in this city. If something did happen that was serious, they could look back on their documents and find a clue. Honestly, I would give you a court title, but I'm pretty sure it'll just turn out to be Divine Court Secretary. Shiro chuckled as Nantion shrugged. I wouldn't mind that too much, I suppose, since I'm still helping you out. ***, you deserve a better title than secretary, so I'll hold on to this for now. Once I'm sure you get something like my dad's title of Blood Moon General, I'll give you a title then. Shiro coughed since she still had some reservations about how the skill named the titles. Most of the time it was how she saw them. For example, for both Li Jian and her dad, she saw them as generals in an army, hence why they got the general title. For Nantion, she didn't want to throw caution into the air just yet. While she was thinking about this, she received a notification on her earpiece. It was a call from Atesh from the earpiece she had given him, so naturally, she picked it up immediately. Darling, did you miss me? Shiro joked as she could hear Addie's laugh. I did, Mom. It's kinda boring here without you or Big Sis. Oh, before I forget, I wanted to call since the Ice Queen has set up a time and place for the meeting. She said tomorrow, midday, and the venue would be the zone I'm in right now. Addie said as Shiro nodded her head. All right, I've noted that down. Do you want to come home and sleep here, or do you want to spend the night over there? Shiro asked as Addie thought about it for a moment. It would seem rude if I don't even stay the night. They've prepared this room for me after all, but I'll be missing you and everyone else. Addie smiled as Shiro shed an invisible tear. They grow up so fast. She thought to herself since Addy was actually worried about the people around him even though they haven't met for long. Sure, me and your big sis will be there tomorrow morning around 10 a.m., Shiro said as Addy nodded, talking for a little longer. Shiro couldn't help but chuckle when learning about how Addy's written a diary of sorts since he didn't have his phone. Confused about this, Shiro felt like a vein was about to burst when it turned out that Ian was responsible for this. Snapping her fingers, Shiro created a new phone for Addy before sending it through a portal and ending the call. Sitting back, Shiro called Ian. Hey mom, what's up? Ian replied as she was currently observing the zone. So about Addy's phone dash. Before Shiro could even finish her sentence, she heard the sound of a crack and the line was cut. Did that bird just break her brother's phone? Shiro muttered with a dark gaze. Sighing softly, she decided to forgive Ian now since she was in a good mood. Her son was just adorable after all. Do you want to go choose something to wear while I finish the rest of this? Nantion asked as Shiro nodded. I'll leave it to you then. Shiro grinned as she jumped off her chair and teleported back to her room. Looking in her closet, she glanced at all the dresses that Aram had sent over. With the help of Estrella space magic, they were able to create a whole separate room inside her closet, so it was much bigger than what it looked like. Looking at all the dresses, Shiro decided that she should probably wear some color to this meeting. With this thought in mind, she found a red dress in the corner that caught her eye. It was a one-piece dress that had the edges transition into floral patterns with a fluttery skirt. Dark red petal patterns could be seen along the hem of the skirt with a pair of red high heels to match. I'll take this one. Shiro smiled as she placed it into her inventory. ####. Waking up early in the morning, Shiro created a portal towards the zone and entered with Nantion. Picking up with them, she raised an eyebrow at Yin's new form. Giving her a bonk to the head with her hand, she smacked the breasts out of her, literally dispelling her illusion. Shiro had Ian enter with them in her proper human form, which was modest compared to her previous form. Once it was 10, Shiro approached the zone and could see Addy waiting for the three of them. Giving him a wave, they entered the main castle and saw a silver and blue-haired beauty sitting on the throne, greeting them with a smile. It has been a while now, hasn't it? Little sister, Kiona said as Shiro rolled her eyes. I remember telling you that I am not your little sister. Shiro retorted since there was only one person in the world that can be her older sis. Cold as usual. Glad to see that you haven't changed. Well, personality-wise at least. Kiona narrowed her eyes since she could sense the colossal amount of mana behind her. She knew that this was completely different to the level 100 snow girl she had seen before. Well, that's true I suppose. But since this is a second meeting, I do believe that we're on equal ground now. Shiro smiled. Snapping her finger, nanobots appeared beneath her as she created a throne to sit on. Making sure it's the same height as the one that Kiona was sitting on, Shiro crossed her legs and smiled. So, do you want to state your business first, or shall I? Seeing your expression, you seem to have something you want to ask of me. Shiro asked as Kiona chuckled. You've become more perceptive, I see. Well, you can ask away first as you are the one to arrange this meeting. Kiona replied, nodding her head. Shiro tapped her finger on the armrest and a hologram appeared in front of them, showing the map of Varish, Lyre, and all of the Beast Queen's territories. There are quite a few things I want to ask you, but I'll focus on the main task first. What do you think about a joint operation to take down the Beast Queen? As you can probably guess, she has an overwhelming advantage over everyone else due to the fact that monsters are under her control. She doesn't need to worry about sacrificing important people as lifelines for a zone, since any random tier 6 would do. If we don't take care of her now, she'll become dangerous in the future. Imagine what she can do with a level 1000 monster that might appear in this world. Shiro said as Kiona narrowed her eyes. That is true. She has been quite ambitious in her actions. Despite not being an empress like you, the dragon bitch and the chimera bitch, her greed is rather big. Other empresses are waiting in the background right now, and only you three have revealed yourselves. She's taking advantage of this and doing whatever she wants. But knowing you, you should be able to deal with her alone, no? Kiona asked. She knew that with how much mana Shiro was radiating right now, it was going to be hard to find anyone that could be on par with her. Hell, she was willing to bet that even the Dragon Empress is below her in terms of sheer mana density. Perhaps. But if I propose a joint operation, it leaves room for future cooperation, no? Shiro smiled as Kiona chuckled. You sound as though you want this to be a common occurrence. But you do realize that this is a race for all of us, right? Helping you would just be me feeding a beast that I cannot tame. Why risk my neck like this? Kiona said as Shiro nodded. True. However, I have some knowledge in regards to this new age. Depending on what your wish is for the system, I might be able to grant it in its place. That's quite the bold claim. Are you sure you have the capabilities to achieve such a task? Kiona narrowed her eyes. Depends on the task, but I do have confidence in myself. Shiro smiled. All of you empresses do. I don't know what kind of information you have, but I know that the system would censor it should you try to disclose this to me. Each of you empresses know some of the system's secrets, and us lowly queens are not allowed to know. A little unfair if you ask me. Hearing this, Shiro paused for a moment since she didn't think other empresses would be able to know a little about secrets. Does that mean Cyrodiil and Arnia might know that anyone else winning the new age is futile? Shiro thought with a frown. With this knowledge in mind, it would possibly give her new leverages to get them on her side. If they knew that the system refuses to let anyone else win but the Queen of the Garden, then things would be favorable for her. Since you know that I cannot tell you, I do hope that you trust me when I say it's better for you to support me in this rather than face the world with your own faction. Shiro said seriously. She didn't want to kill more queens than she is forced to since they each had their stories. Each of them have a dream they want to achieve, and most of the time it's to do with their own loved ones. All of them are just victims of the system. Are you saying you want me as your subordinate? Kiona asked as her voice turned cold. Even if she knew that Shiro had more information than her, she wasn't about to become her subordinate. Her pride wouldn't allow it. No, I meant having you as someone on equal footing. An alliance where I help you and you help me. I already have Misu, the undead queen, on my side, and I'm giving the same offer to you. Shiro shook her head as Kiona thought about it for a moment before shaking her head. I will need more time to think about this. However, it does not mean I'm unwilling to cooperate. Remember when we met before? I had wanted you to help me with a task in the future. Why don't you help me with that task now, and I'll help you? Kiona offered. Perhaps, but like you said, I can deal with the Beast Queen alone with the manpower I have now. The only reason I offered you this was to form an alliance. It does not mean I am willing to expend my resources on you when I can do this task alone. Though, if it is a small task, I might consider it. Shiro shook her head since it was an unfavorable trade for her. While this will benefit you in the long run since we'll be eliminating one of the empresses, I want your help in killing the Empress of Shadows. Kiona offered as Shiro narrowed her eyes. And what do you mean by this will benefit me? What if I want her on my side? I doubt you'll want to do that. The Empress of Shadows is not a normal empress. She's one that has already fallen. A fallen empress. Once her desires have been attained, she'll lose her sanity and become a monster that would stop at nothing until this world is destroyed. Do you really want something like that to be on your side? Kiona asked as Shiro thought about it for a moment. She was right. If the Empress has already fallen, then that severely cuts off her chances of recruiting her. Remembering the fact that fallen cannot be saved, Shiro couldn't help but sigh and feel pity for them. If possible, she'll want her to attain her revenge first, slay whoever put her in this state, then kill her afterwards. At least then, she'll be able to pass on with the knowledge that her revenge was achieved. Sure, I can help you with that, but that will have to wait considering the fact that I need to help Misu first. Shiro smiled as Kiona nodded. That's fine. I'm still looking for her whereabouts myself. Anything I can use to contact you when the need arises. Snapping her fingers, Shiro created a phone and threw it towards Kiona. This phone will allow you to contact me whenever you want. I do hope that I don't need to tell you how to work a phone. Shiro smiled. Of course not. When will you be attacking the Beast Queen? Kiona asked. Tomorrow. I'll call you when the time comes. I don't believe there is anything else to talk about, so I'll be taking my leave now. Leaving the zone, Shiro led everyone back to the city. Mom, what are you thinking about? Addie asked since he could tell that she was concerned about something. Just thinking about the fallen empress. I'm wondering what could push her over the edge and fall. I know that I was close when the watchman appeared, but that was a unique situation. And also I'm just thinking if there's a way to help them or not. I know that so far it is deemed impossible, but there are no absolutes. Just very unlikely. Perhaps there might be something we can do to help. I don't know, but that's just more questions for the system once my skill comes off cooldown. Shiro smiled as Addie nodded his head. Meanwhile, Safi, Kiona called out as Safi walked over. What is it, Your Highness? How do I use this thing? I know that this is what most people use now, but isn't it just easier to use familiars? But since this is the only way I can contact her, I suppose I should learn. Kiona asked as she pointed towards the phone. I believe you just tapped the screen, Your Highness. You see that icon over there? That is where your contacts are, and right now the only one there is Miss Shiro. Tapping it would let you call her. Safi replied. Kiona is not good with technology. Making their way back to the city, Shiro paused as she turned around and glanced towards the crests. Furrowing her brows, she watched as Theria took over 2 more zones. With most of the zones under her control, she'll need to completely demolish those forces in order for her to come out on top. That doesn't look too good. Nantion frowned as Shiro agreed. Perhaps I should shred some of her defenses. No, that would warn her ahead of time. Tapping her chin, Shiro glanced up at the sky. Since most of the zones have a barrier, I should get rid of them. Even if they know we're coming, they won't have anything to help defend. Shiro muttered as a smile formed on her lips. Seeing this smile, both Addie and Een felt a chill down their spine since they knew Shiro was about to cause quite a bit of destruction. Follow me, we're going to get front row seats. Let me give Kiona a call as well. Let her see some of my capabilities. Should be enough to persuade her to join my side. Shiro chuckled. Snapping her fingers, a portal appeared in front of them. Entering the portal, they found themselves standing on top of the command tower in the middle of the city. Stretching her body, Shiro walked forward and slammed her hand down. Suddenly, 2 rows of pillars appeared around her as each of them had densely packed runes etched to the surface. Pushing her hand out, mana flared as a barrier was formed around her. Now, this might take quite a bit of mana, so a barrier is needed to keep it a surprise. Remember, Addie, if you want to surprise someone, make sure you have a barrier that conceals your mana. Even if it breaks later, you have to make sure they have little to no time to prepare defenses, okay? Shiro said as Addie nodded his head and watched carefully. Flexing her fingers on her right hand, holograms appeared as the 3 of them could see the world with countless satellites lighting up above their current location. Initiating the Argus satellite network. Master key accepted. Entering orbital cannon mode. Watching the holographic warnings appear on the screen, Addie could see the satellites change as parts started to transform. Nanobots converged together to form barrels, while mana coils could be spotted in the back. Let's see. 30% should be fine considering how easy it was for me to destroy the barrier in this place. But I still need to pierce the barrier surrounding Earth. I need to make sure it's a drill so that the whole thing is still intact. If there are too many holes, the thing might shatter. Shiro muttered. She wasn't sure why the barrier was there in the first place, but she knew that it would probably be better if she didn't break the barrier. She needed something that would allow her attack to pass through without conflicting with it. Thinking about it for a moment, she activated her analysis skill and glanced up toward the sky. Focusing her gaze on the barrier in the sky, she pulled up all the information she had and made some adjustments to the attack. Normally, for her orbital cannon, she would have countless magic circles stacked with one another until the attack reaches the surface. That way, it would have as much power as it can gather. However, since she was making sure she didn't just vaporize everything in the cannon's path, she had to hold back a little. Plus, she wanted to keep the barrier intact, so most of the magic circle would be used to make a path through the barriers. Reaching out with her hand, hundreds of Tier 6 magic circles burst out around her. Watching this spectacle, Atesh couldn't help but smile. Even if she wasn't assisted by his passive, he wouldn't be able to attack her at all should they battle. Unlike his spar with Safi, he would be on the losing side. Shiro's mental calculations to make hundreds of Tier 6 magic circles was unparalleled. While she is stationary, there were quite a few that were dedicated to protecting her too. So unless he was charging up a powerful attack, he won't be breaking past her defenses anytime soon. If she's on the move, he should forget about getting a hit in unless he was willing to give up an arm or a leg for the counter. Mum's in a league of her own like usual, Atesh thought with a chuckle. As for Een, I'm pretty sure if I can make that many magic circles, I'll be able to roast a whole building worth of meat for a barbecue if I want. I have the power, but I can't control it that well, so the roast would be uneven and it'll taste bad. With both Addie and Een watching intently, Shiro prepared the next stage of her spell. Snapping her fingers, a bird's-eye view of Varish Lyre appeared in front of her as markers could be seen on all of the zones that have been captured by Theria. Scanning the zones, she could see that they were quite densely packed with monsters. Hardly any humans could be spotted, but as much as she wants to just rain hell on the place, there was a chance that the monsters want to leave her control. After all, Nitha was like that. Once the power was adjusted, Shiro clasped her hands together and smiled. Time to give Kiona a call. ####. Investigating the strange phone in front of her, Kiona was spooked when it suddenly started to vibrate and hum a tune. Safi, what is it doing? Kiona asked as Safi glanced down and saw that Shiro was calling. It's Miss Shiro. I believe she is calling you right now. To answer, you just need to swipe right on that icon, Your Highness. Safi explained as Kiona stared at the screen for a moment. Wait, swipe? I thought you only needed to tap. It depends, but you may want to answer soon. Safi sighed. Right? Ahem. Wait, how should I answer? Explaining the actions of answering a phone, Safi watched as Kiona finally swiped on the accept call. Hello, this is Kiona speaking. Took you a while to answer. Are you busy? Shiro asked with a raised eyebrow. No. Do you need me for something? Calling so soon. Kiona replied. Well, I don't need you right now, but you might want to look out the window. Just a small demonstration before our attack tomorrow. I'll be taking care of all the barriers in the zones. Hearing this, Kiona walked towards her window. I'm watching. Just as she said this, she watched as a layer of magic circles lit up in the sky. Each of the magic circles felt like they could eradicate a city, as she couldn't help but feel intimidated by the amount of mana they were radiating. Suddenly, the surroundings darkened as pillars of light descended from the skies, shattering the barriers in an instant as a wave of dust could be seen expanding out from the impact zone. Quickly swiping with her hand, she reinforced her zone with a magical barrier of its own, but the impact still caused the place to shake. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelworld.com. Boom. Hearing the sound of the explosion, Kiona furrowed her brows and cleared the dust. Seeing the barriers shattered to pieces, she was speechless. All of Theria's zones were now completely exposed without any defense. That was quite the show, Kiona said as Shiro chuckled. Don't be surprised just yet. I did mention that this was a small demonstration. I'll notify you when we're ready to launch the main attack tomorrow. Nodding her head, Kiona placed the phone away from her before whispering to Safi. How do I end the call? You press this icon, Your Highness. Safi whispered back as Kiona ended the call. ####. Hearing what the two had just said, Shiro was stunned speechless for a moment. Forget about how her spell had just demolished several barriers that were supposed to protect a place from 80% of attacks. She was more curious about the fact that Kiona didn't know how to end a call. Does she not know how to use a phone? Shiro asked as Adi, Een, and Nantion glanced at each other before shrugging. Seems like it. She took a while to pick up after all, Nantion said as Shiro thought about it for a moment. Then if she accepts this alliance, how do you think she'll react to this city? Shiro asked, pointing at the shopping center where most things are technology-based. If Kiona struggled with receiving and ending a call, she wasn't sure what to expect would happen if she tried to browse the catalog of the supermarket. I'm sure it should be fine, no? Just give her a manual on how most things work and it'll sort itself out. Een shrugged. I hope so. Otherwise, communicating with her using the things in this city might be annoying. Perhaps I should use familiars with her. Shiro muttered, unsure of how she should approach this. Sitting on her throne, Cyrodiil was resting with her eyes closed when she sensed something happening above. Furrowing her brows, she opened her eyes and made her way towards the window. Looking up at the sky, she narrowed her eyes and activated a skill. Noticing the countless satellites charging up and transforming into cannons, her lips curled up into a smile. So Shiro is still alive and kicking. Good to know that there is still hope, I suppose. If she died, I wouldn't even know until the second half of the new age. Cyrodiil muttered with a chuckle, stretching her body. She was about to move away when she paused in a horrific realization. Wait, how did she get to space? There should be a barrier there. Frowning slightly, she was worried that Shiro's attack would pierce a hole in the barrier. Last time she attacked from space, a hole was pierced so it would serve as an entrance for other entities drifting through space. If her memory is correct, the barrier should help them fend off against an invasion during the second half of the New Age, where a fallen demigod would bring his army of fallen. If she pokes too many holes, it would speed up the invasion. F***CK, that's not good. I need to have a chat with her. It's already hard enough for the world to fix what happened during the first event, and now she wants to poke more holes. Cyrodiil muttered with a frown. Unfortunately, she was the lifeline, so she couldn't leave, otherwise she would be talking to her about her choices. Biting her nails, Cyrodiil could only watch silently. Watching the satellites fire the shot, she was surprised to see that the shot was guided by a tube of sorts. Each of the tubes would form a path through the barriers before sealing up again. Blinking her eyes in surprise, she didn't expect Shiro to be able to achieve something like this. Wait, if she can do that then, does that mean we can end the invasion before it even starts? Cyrodiil widened her eyes in realization. However, she'll need to increase her level if she wants to clear the invasion. They're against a demigod after all. With her knowledge of what had happened in the previous gardens, they'll need to be at least level 900 to pose a significant threat to them. She knew that Shiro had some divine energy in her, so she could assume that she has a skill that lets her tap into the next stage. But if it's just us two, it's not enough. We'll need more queens and empresses to be at that level so that we can clear the stage. But aside from me and her, I'm not sure if there is anyone else who would actually help out. Cyrodiil thought with a frown. Tapping her chin, she wondered about the dungeons and other raids that she could forcefully break so that will help everyone raise their levels. Scratching her hair, she decided that it was probably better to look for Shiro after the event. If they can form an alliance for now so that they can launch an attack on the invaders before losing more than half the world to them, it would be beneficial. Thinking back to Shiro, Cyrodiil couldn't help but think back to what happened during the first event. When the event ended, she had been ambushed by someone who was able to disable her immediately. She wasn't sure about what had happened, but there was something strange about her body now. There are traces of foreign energy that she couldn't dispel, but it helped her growth. With someone being able to ambush her like that, she couldn't help but wonder about what would happen if they had wanted her dead. Shaking her head, she returned to her phone and sat down. Since Shiro was able to help her out, there was no need for her to pay attention to this card. Pulling out a card with a raven feather from her inventory, Cyrodiil ignited it and burned it to ash. "You'll regret that." A voice rang out, clearly annoyed by her actions. "I don't think I will, but I have to say, you are quite the detestable existence, aren't you? Sneaking around the shadows. What are you, a stalker?" Cyrodiil smirked as her aura flared. Sensing the presence disappear, Cyrodiil retracted her aura. What a creep. But whoever is he, there wasn't anyone like him in the previous gardens. She muttered before closing her eyes. Now it's just a case of waiting until the end of the event to find Shiro. However, she had the feeling that Shiro would be looking for her instead. ###. Bang. Slamming her hand on the table, Theria watched as all of her barriers for the zones were destroyed in an instant. None of the zones had protection now, and she knew the feeling of that mana. It was Shiro, the same young queen that she had ignored so many months ago. She was the one that had helped her indirectly to claim a city for her anchor, so she decided to spare her, but that was clearly a mistake. I should have killed her when I could have. Theria narrowed her eyes before snapping her fingers. "You called." A blue-haired man kneeled in front of her, as there was a runic collar around his neck. His golden eyes looked down at the ground since he was merely a slave that she won in an event. He wasn't even a proper subordinate under her. "Take a few tier SIXS with you. Do you see that zone with the crest of a woman with a city? I want you to take over that and integrate one of the lesser tier SIXS as the lifeline. If things go wrong, you can come back. We just want to kill whoever is inside that zone," Theria said as the man nodded his head. Understood. Walking out of the castle, he transformed into a multi-headed leviathan. Despite his power, he was reduced to a mere pawn of a heartless queen. Revel LVL 900 Storm Leviathan. Sighing softly, he looked towards the monsters under Theria's control and started to make his way towards Varish Lyre. ###. After cleaning up everything, Shiro made her way back to the command center while Een and Addie went off to do their own stuff, with Nantion following behind her. She wanted to ask Helion to make a few more adjustments to Sylvanes since he had some time to rest. But before she could, she received a call from Misu asking for a meeting. Asking Misu to come to her office, Shiro waited patiently. Hearing a knock, she opened the door. "Come in." Shiro smiled as Misu nodded. "So what brings you here today? I figured that you would be busy with how many tasks you have been given." Shiro asked. "I am, but while I'm looking through things I came across something rather curious. So you know how Een has been leaving to find upgrade parts?" Misu asked as Shiro was a little surprised that she knew since it wasn't something she talked about a lot. "Don't worry. I was talking to Erin before and she mentioned this." Misu explained since she could see her confusion. "Basically, when I was looking through some records, I noticed a pattern with the locations of her upgrade parts." Pulling out a world map that Shiro had sent to shops, Misu marked down the spots where Een had discovered the previous parts. "If you like everything together, what do you think it looks like?" Misu asked as Shiro narrowed her eyes. With all of the spots being joined up like this, it reminded her of a constellation, similar to what she had seen in the Forgotten Realm. Would it happen to be constellations? Yup, back in my world, I remember seeing something similar, so it took me a while, but look at this. This is the Phoenix constellations, and it's something that quite a few would use as a crest for the Healer Guild back in my world. If you overlap the two, you can see that it traces the same outline, even if the positions are different. If Een is looking for the last part, I believe it should be here, where the heart of the constellation would be. Furrowing her brows, Shiro was surprised by her assumption. Wouldn't it be towards the eye? With how the stars are positioned, the eye should make the most sense. Shiro asked, pointing towards the top of the constellation. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelworld.com. Yes, but that's only if the previous locations were in the same place. The Eye of the Phoenix is the center of the constellation before, but with the new positions, that eye can be replaced with this node, meaning there has to be a new center. If you link up all the motes, the center would be here. And guess what's here on the map? Mrs. smiled. A mountain range of volcanoes. All right, I'll send this information to Ian. She should be happy to know that the final piece has been discovered. Shiro nodded. Amen. You might want to help her, though. Theria has that place on lockdown. Not sure what she wants from that place, but a fight might break out. Mrs. shrugged before packing everything away. Talking for a little longer, she left the office. With Misu leaving the office, Shiro was left with just Nantian by her side. Do you want me to compile everything into a file and send it to Ian? Nantian offered. Yes, please. That would be great. By the way, how do you think Theria will react? Now that I have destroyed all of her barriers protecting her zones, she is definitely going to be pissed. Also, what about her subordinate? If I remember correctly, he was the one that had kidnapped you when you were younger and wanted to harm me so that you would fall. Shiro asked since she was still concerned about her subordinates. It's easy to just kill them, but a lack of information is deadly. I'm not sure, but I doubt it is possible for them to do anything to you. In terms of reactions, knowing how she is, I'd say she'll probably launch a retaliation soon, so you might want to keep an eye out for that. Nantian said as he pulled out a laptop and started to type. True, Shiro nodded while spinning on her chair. Closing her eyes, she wondered about her plan in the next few days. Since there was now only 2 days left, not including today, she had to make sure Theria is defeated by tomorrow and take the zones for herself. Not only that, she also needed to protect them from people. Right now, out of the 15 zones, Theria had taken over 8 of them, which is just over half of the total amount. She has taken 3. Kiona took 1, and so did Cyrodiil. As for the rest of the zones, they're being fought over by other queens. To win the event, I just need to make sure I steal most of Theria's points by conquering her zone. The most points earned would be the ones that she took at the beginning. So, if I take 2 of the large zones that she had conquered and 2 small zones, I should have enough points to win. Nantian, Adi, Estrella, and Keiko can take the zones with me, acting as defense against anyone else. However, holding off against the attacks of multiple queens would be difficult if I have to defend against it alone. While Shiro did have overwhelming power in a one-on-one, it'll be hard to deal with all of their skills in a one against many. An example would be the Queen of Trickery. If she was ignored, she could become a serious problem during a match. And yet, if she focused too much on her, the others would be able to perform to their full power. She needed something that could protect all of the zones while not giving the enemy queen a chance to retaliate. The Argus satellite network is good since it'll be able to wipe their army from the face of the earth. However, if she wants to make sure it's powerful enough, she'll have to give up maintaining the barrier around Earth. I can try to link up all of the zones and transform them to flying cities armed with mechs and turrets. But the power consumption would be too much even if I did create anchors. Misu is helping me out now, but I still need Madison if I want to make something remotely usable for several flying cities. Thinking back to Madison, Shiro couldn't help but wonder how she was doing. She had left the city in order to pursue more strength after receiving an offer to enter the demon realm. I wonder how Maddie is doing. Shiro muttered. I'm sure she's doing just fine. Even if it's the demon realm, as a demon queen, it shouldn't be hard. Plus, she is talented, so she'll slaughter everything in her way. Nantian chuckled as Shiro agreed. ####. Stinking old man. Stop watching and help me. I'll die before I go back to everyone else. I shouldn't have come here, god damn it. Madison shouted out in rage as her armor was completely tattered. Behind her was a creature that dwarfed her completely and destroyed anything it touched. Demonic Decay, Beast LVL 800. Fufu, did you not want strength? This old man is helping his descendants out, and yet no sign of gratitude. How cruel. But if there's one thing I like, it's that your endurance to damage is superb. If not, you would have died by now. Ha ha ha. An old man laughed as he was currently flying above her while she was being chased. The old man had a long black beard, tattered robes with plated armor underneath, and a pair of red eyes that pierced the darkness around him. Macron LVL 1000 Demon God, Divinity Rank 3. He had a hearty grin on his face as one of the decay beast's arms reached towards him. Without saying anything, Blue flames erupted from his body and charred the arm to ash. If you don't face him, you will never get stronger. Macron smirked as Madison felt the urge to punch the old man. I'm only level 600. You want me to try to kill something more than 200 levels above me? Madison shouted back as she felt danger behind her. Stomping down, she kicked up a slab of stone and threw it behind her, blocking one of the beast's strikes. Yes, we demons are an exception to this world. We are able to have a king while others can only have queens. Naturally, this means we know how to make an emperor as well as an empress. As you are the current demon queen, I will make you the demon empress. All empresses can kill those above their level. Your friend, Shiro, she has enough strength to slay this beast if she puts everything on the line. To stand by her side and be of use to her, you need to do the same. Macron said as Madison felt a little inspired. However, this inspiration immediately disappeared after hearing his next line, or you can be disintegrated to dust, which I hope not. Macron laughed as Madison felt a vein burst from her anger. Stupid old man. In her moment of distraction, the beast managed to catch up as she immediately gritted her teeth and turned around. Summoning a set of illusionary armor around her body, she slammed her shoulder against the beast's incoming arm. Bang! Stopping him in his tracks. Madison flinched a little as she could feel her mana being corroded by the decay. Watching silently, Macron had his hand on his sword, ready to interfere if things go south. Despite what he had just said, he will not allow his beloved granddaughter to get killed by a mere beast. If she dies, it'll be after he departs from the world of the living. Raising its head, the beast unhinged his jaw and tentacles exploded out towards Madison. There is only one person who I give permission for touching me, and that is not you. Madison shouted out as she jumped back and slammed her hand down. Shattering the ground around her, she caused the beast to stumble as his attack missed. Taking this opportunity, she summoned her avatar and reached towards the sky. Boom. The sound of lightning rang out as the skies parted to reveal an axe formed of densely packed mana. Grabbing it with both her hands, she pinned the beast under her foot and cleaved down with the axe. However, the moment the axe touched the beast, it shattered to pieces. Since her weapon that Helion had made was broken a while ago, she had to form everything using mana, but clearly, against this beast, it wasn't effective. If mana doesn't work, then I'll use my body. Demonic beings are known for their strong physiques. Madison shouted out in her mind. Reaching towards the decayed beast's mouth, she jammed her hands in and started to pull apart its jaw. Hiss. Hissing out in pain, the beast flailed its arms and tentacles, but Madison was adamant in killing him. Retracting its tentacles, a spray of venom shot out of its body as Madison was drenched from head to toe. Feeling the burning against her skin, she gritted her teeth and summoned all of the strength that she could gather. Conditions have been cleared. Ignoring the system notification, she felt strength burst from her body as she could see the muscles ripping apart. Giving it her all. Her skin turned black as red runic patterns appeared on the surface. Her scarlet hair fluttered behind her as she ripped the beast in half. Throwing the two halves of the monster's body away, Madison stumbled on the spot before collapsing against the floor. The last thing she saw was the system notification. Passive skill obtained. Ancient demon physique. Landing next to Madison, Macron smiled softly as he healed her injuries. Dismissing the venom that was still trying to melt her body, he glanced back at the two halves that were merging together. You should stay dead, he said coldly. Suddenly, the beast swelled up like a balloon and exploded into countless chunks that were then burnt to ash by blue flames. Picking up Madison, Macron created a portal and left the area. His main goal had been achieved, and Madison has obtained the optimal physique for a demon empress. Now it was just a matter of helping her gain levels and obtain the key to becoming the empress. Groaning softly, Madison sat up and was greeted by the dark skies of the demon realm. Rubbing her eyes, she glanced around and saw that the beast had disappeared and sighed in relief. Don't get too happy yet. You ripped it in half, but it wasn't killed. If you passed out like that without me being around, you would be nothing but a puddle of blood right now, Macron said as he was currently roasting some food for her. So I didn't kill it in the end. I thought I did. Madison pouted before realizing something important. Quickly looking down at her arm, she sighed in relief after seeing that it was still her normal shade of color. It wasn't her preference to go around looking like a molten demon after all. Checking her system interface, she read the description of her new passive skill. Ancient demon physique. Once you reach 10% health, you gain the following benefits. Plus 200% damage resistance. Stats are tripled for 30 seconds. Plus 200% damage adaptation. Stats siphon plus 30%. Plus 50% true damage nullification. Pausing at the skill's stats, she glanced towards her great ancestor. So care to tell me what the ancient demon physique is? Madison asked as Macron glanced back. It's a physique that all powerful demons have. When you get stronger, it'll evolve into primordial demon physique, then primordial demon empress physique, and finally, demon goddess physique. But that's only if you reach the same stage as me. Macron chuckled. Does that mean you have the demon god physique? Yes, I do. Since you became the demon queen, and I am your backer, so to say, I received some extra benefits that allowed me to push back the other demon gods. Macron replied as Madison nodded. Since you have it as well, can you explain what stat siphon is? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. You steal 30% of your enemy's stats. The stronger they are, the more powerful this becomes. Of course, if they're too strong, this might backfire and it'll flood your body with too much power. Macron shrugged as Madison felt the urge to smack the old man. Why is everything to do with demons so dangerous? When are things not dangerous? Now stop complaining and rest up. This is almost finished. Fine. It smells quite nice. When did you grow a hard old man? Didn't think you'd actually cook something that's good. Madison raised an eyebrow. This? You have weird preferences if poisonous fumes smell nice. Hearing this, Madison froze up in shock as she could feel her body become paralyzed. We'll be training your physique and force it to evolve to the next stage. Once these don't affect you anymore, we can proceed to the next stage. Macron grinned as he fed her some of the meat. Feeling pain in her mouth, Madison glared at Macron in anger as he only laughed before eating some meat as well. Once this doesn't affect you, it tastes quite nice actually. Think of it as spicy food. He grinned. Go F***ck yourself. Madison squeezed out between gritted teeth as she could feel the poison coursing through her body. Closing her eyes, she thought about everyone else in the city. She wanted to return to the city soon, greet everyone with a happy face, and see Shiro back on her feet, pushing towards a better future for everyone. She wanted everyone to be together again. ####. Emin, is there something wrong? Asher asked as Lyrica had suddenly stopped in her tracks. Not really. I just felt a surge of mana quite far away. Lyrica shook her head with a smile. Your senses are too crazy. Even I can't do that much. A young girl with crystalline silver hair and a pair of purple eyes sighed as she walked over with the head of a monster in her hands. Well, Lyrica is abnormal. After all, her range of detection can extend past a country. Asher laughed as the young girl shrugged before packing the head of the monster into her bag. Nice, give it here. I'll store it away so that you can use it later. If you keep it in your bag, it'll rot Nitha. Asher sighed as Nitha stuck out her tongue and handed him the head. I know that we are quite powerful for this place, but please, focus since we are still surrounded on all sides. Cadme shouted out as she struggled to push off a monster with her staff. Hee, do you want help? Should I help? Nitha grinned as she giggled at her dilemma. That would be great, Nitha. I'll even cook that head later if you want. Cadme shouted back as Nitha pouted. No, I want Asher to cook. Fine, just help me. Stop playing around, Nitha. Let's go help her out, then take care of the boss. Asher sighed and tapped her on the head. Shrugging her shoulders, Nitha jumped up into the air and narrowed her eyes at the monsters surrounding them. Mana flared from her body as illusionary tentacles and scythes appeared behind her. Twisting her body, a cyclone of blades shot out, shredding the monsters to pieces. Retracting the tentacles back into her body, Nitha landed with a proud smile. You could have helped out earlier, but thank you. Cadme sighed in relief. Reaching into her inventory, she threw a roasted monster leg towards Nitha, who jumped up and snatched it out of the air. Payment has been received. Thank you for your patronage. Nitha grinned as she chewed on the food. Chuckling softly, Lyrica patted her head. You remind me quite a bit of Ian. Both of you are food lovers. Lyrica smiled as Nitha nodded. Well, Ian gave me some human food back in that city along with some tips on transforming. She's my senior, so I should use her as an example. Nitha said as Lyrica's smile faltered. Please don't. I think Shiro has enough trouble with one Ian. If you become a second Ian and go back to the city, Shiro might die of stress. Speaking of stress, let's finish clearing this place and go back. I'm pretty exhausted after everything we've gone through, Gordon said as flicked the blood off of his sword. Hearing this, Lyrica nodded as she walked towards where the biggest source of mana was. Flexing her finger, an array of blades appeared around her as each sword felt like it could cleave the world in half. However, she still wasn't satisfied. This amount of power wasn't enough to avenge her parents. I need more strength, she thought to herself as her gaze was cold. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. While she was resting, Shiro felt a cluster of mana signatures appear near the outskirts of Varish, Lyre before disappearing. In that brief moment, she was able to tell that 3 of the signatures within the cluster were close to her level, which was not a good sign. Waving her hand, she brought up a screen and scanned the area where she had sensed the mana. Thanks to Argus' blessing, it was now easier for her to find the things that she wants. With a simple scan of the satellites, she was able to see the multi-headed Leviathan traveling with a small group of monsters. Right after they appeared, they camouflaged with their surroundings and disappeared. Noticing that they're approaching one of her zones, Shiro narrowed her eyes dangerously. Nantion, we're leaving to greet some guests, Shiro said as Nantion paused in surprise. I suppose a massacre is in order then. Indeed, though I will give them a chance to join me. There are a few with auras similar to mine, so if I can get them to my side, it'll be a great help. But if they refuse, then let's just say Yin's got some premium ingredients coming her way. Shiro smirked as Nantion nodded her head. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go give them the welcome they deserve. Though you might want to do it a little further away from the zone. You might damage it with the fight after all. True. Standing up from her chair, Shiro thought about it for a moment and decided to go with a big entrance. They want them to know that they're no easy prey after all. Waving her hand, a portal formed as she stepped through with black armor materializing around her dress. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Asterisk, boom. Hearing the sound of lightning, Revel glanced up and saw a portal break open with flickers of electricity striking the ground and leaving deep craters. Feeling the mana and killing intent in the air, he couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. To think a Kui, no, Empress would make me feel like this. It is certainly a surprise, he thought to himself as 2 figures appeared from the portal. What guts you have to attack a place protected by my crest? A loud voice rang out as Tier 6 magic circles appeared around them. Before they could react, ice chains latched against their bodies, leaving only Revel to stand there on his own without any restraints. Understanding that his opponent already knew his secret, Revel narrowed his eyes as he watched a white-haired woman appear in front of him. Despite being smaller than his stature, her aura dominated him. That arrogance, that pride, and that confidence. It was as though she could kill him with a single flip of the finger. A dangerous woman. Looking down, Shiro spotted 3 that were around her strength, while the 4th was the Leviathan that strangely had a slave rune around his neck. It wasn't too clear from the image that Misu had showed her, but upon further inspection, Shiro realized that Tier 8 magic circles were integrated with the rune. If I was given a day, I should be able to break it apart, she mused to herself, since she would need to experiment a little. Breaking a Tier 8 rune was not an easy task considering the difficulty of studying the Tier 8 runes she has now. However, while she was thinking about this, 2 of the monsters moved into action. Breaking their chains, they disappeared from the spot. Nantion wanted to help, but Shiro shook her head. This was going to be a good workout for her. Asterisk, bang bang. Blocking their strikes with her hands that had reinforcement runes on the back of her hands, she grinned. How rude. Attacking this Empress before declaring your intent verbally. I suppose I should mark you down for execution then. Pulling the 2 closer to her, nanobots surged around her as they merged into 2 shotguns. Asterisk, bang. Shooting both guns at once, she was a little surprised to see a multi-layered barrier that managed to withstand her strike. Her eyes quickly darted around and noticed how they formed this barrier. The one to her right, the second monster cast the first shield, while the one besides Revel mirrored the effects to save the first monster. Second one blocks, third one multiplies. Shiro noted down in her mind as she pushed the 2 away before summoning a sword to her hand. It wasn't Sylvanie's, since that would make it boring for her. After all, with Sylvanie's, her attacks practically ignore all defense. Stomping down, she jumped through the rift and appeared in front of the first monster. Nice day to die, isn't it? Shiro asked with a charming smile before cleaving down with her blade. Flames erupted from the edge as the monster widened his eyes. However, before the sword could reach him, the second monster flashed between them as barriers formed around his body before being mirrored several times over. Asterisk, boom. Shattering several layers immediately, Shiro was forcefully knocked back by the impact as she stabilized herself in the air. Sensing some danger behind her, she slammed her hand down as several ice chains erupted out behind her as they attempted to restrain the first monster. Sword-like bones protruded from the monster's arms as runes suddenly appeared on the blade. Immediately scanning the runes the moment they appeared, Shiro realized that they were his passive skill, which allowed him to adapt his attack to any defense. If they had a weakness to fire, his blades would shift elements. So one can adapt to get rid of any defense, one can block most attacks and the last, and amplify their effects. That's quite the team Theria has under her belt. Plus, Revel is just watching right now. If he joins in, I won't be able to use mana. Shiro thought to herself as she watched her blades get cleaved apart. Curling her lips into a grin, she reached for the blades. Ping. Shattering them with her hand that was coated with nanobots and armor that Helion had created, Shiro narrowed her eyes. Activating Kaitoma, the monster felt his body freeze up completely. Closing her eyes for a moment, she reopened them with a purple glow. Eyes of the Gorgon. His skin started to rapidly petrify as he released an explosion of mana between them, forcing them apart. Quickly shielding her face from the attack, Shiro summoned a spear and parried an attack by the second monster behind her. Returning her attention back to the first monster, she could see the petrification wearing off as the third monster was also supporting him with some support spells. So he's not just for enhancing. A vanguard, tank, and support. Standard 3-man cell with Revel being anti-mage. Shiro thought to herself. Understanding that it was about time for her to get a little serious, Shiro grabbed the second monster by his arms. Grit your teeth and take it like a real monster. Shiro chuckled as her eyes glowed menacingly. Pressing her leg against his chest, machine gauntlets appeared around her arms as she attempted to tear them out of their sockets. Seeing this, the first monster quickly reacted as the blade cleaved towards her head. However, Shiro only smiled as an array of weapons appeared behind her. Activating several Tier 8 runes on her arms, she could see the horror and fear in the monster's eyes as her lips curled up into a sadistic grin. *KRSHHHH. Ripping out the arms, she threw them back as she grabbed him by the throat. Crushing his windpipe, she pulled back with her hand as a blade was created with nanobots. Piercing his chest and ignoring all of the defenses he put up, Shiro cut straight down and split the bottom half of his body apart. Letting the blood spill against her, she devoured the body with her nanobots and turned towards the first monster that was now trapped in an array of weapons that constantly sought to take his life. The third monster was frozen with fear, unsure of what to do since this was not what they expected. Her attack power was far beyond their comprehension. If you don't make a move, your little friends will be gone. But you seem like you have something you want to say. Shiro smiled as Revel transformed into his human self. You seem to be experienced with the runic language on this collar. Revel spoke as he flinched from the backlash of his collar. How versed are you with it? Revel asked as Shiro smiled. Give me a day, and I can free you from your collar. I can offer you freedom to do as you please in the world. However, you can also help me, but it will not be like the current situation you have with Theria. Two people of equal footing. I will assist you when you need me, and in return I expect the same. Proper allies. Shiro offered as Revel narrowed his eyes. Ignoring the burning on his throat, he squeezed out the next sentence. I want you to make a vow that everything you say is indeed the truth. Of course, I vow under my name as the nanotech demigoddess that my offer towards Revel is the truth. Shiro nodded as golden lights appeared around her, verifying the vow. Seeing this, Revel nodded his head as he reached towards the third monster. Boom. Without a chance to defend himself, he was completely eviscerated by the lightning that erupted out from Revel's palm. Flinching from the pain on his collar, he watched as an avatar of Theria appeared above him, glaring at him with cold eyes. What do you th? Silence. Do not speak another word to me, vile woman. If I stay as your slave for another moment of my life, then I'd rather die. Know this. If I live past this day, then I will become your enemy. You have humiliated my pride as the storm Leviathan for long enough, and you shall pay for your transgression. Live each day with the fear that I may come for your life at any moment. Revel cut her off as her avatar was immediately destroyed. Blinking her eyes in surprise, Shiro looked towards Nantion. I like his attitude, she said with a bright smile since it was something that she would do. Same with me. He's got quite the spirit. Nantion chuckled as Shiro decided to stop playing around. Snapping her finger, a null mana zone appeared around the first monster while the blades pierced towards him. Each of the blades were coated with a layer of barriers that allowed it to work on internal mana for a short period of time, enough to shred the monster to pieces. Before his corpse was repaired by Shiro's spell, She needed this prime ingredient to be in good condition for Een after all. I'll leave the rest for you to deal with. I've pointed out which ones have clear souls and somewhat redeemable souls. You know what to do with them. If they don't want to come, then don't force them. But if they want to attack, make sure they're not too cut up or else Een might be annoyed with the state of her ingredients. Shiro chuckled as Nantion nodded. Flying towards Revel, Shiro could see burn marks around his neck from the collar, but it was no normal wound. It was one that damaged the soul. Do not be concerned. I have my own methods to prolong this so that you may get as much time as you need. I can also heal myself afterwards, Revel said as Shiro nodded. All right, I'll slow it down for now and try to make it so that it doesn't hurt. After that, I'll need you to come with me to the zone so that I can properly start to decipher this collar and free you, Shiro said as Revel nodded. Conjuring up several Tier 8 runes to help him relieve the pain, Shiro created a portal back to the zone as Nantion was only able to convince 3 of the monsters. The others were loyal to Theria until the end. Asterisk bang. Slamming her arm rest out of anger, Theria's chest heaved up and down in anger as her avatar was destroyed by Revel. How dare he, she muttered through gritted teeth. Activating a crest on the back of her hand, she wanted to crush his soul here and now. However, the moment she tried that, she felt a backlash as he was fighting back. Furrowing her brows, she clicked her tongue in annoyance. Thinking about her next steps in silence, she thought about how to deal with Shiro. Sure enough, an empress is hard to deal with. Theria mused as she thought back to how Shiro killed her subordinates. With what she had demonstrated, Theria knew that Shiro was just playing around. Her demonstration of the cannons that destroyed her barriers. Biting her nail, Theria glared at the crests in the distance. Why is life unfair? Why can she get the strength to destroy a whole region and drain it of mana? She muttered hatefully. Taking a deep breath, she sighed. She knew that there was probably no chance of her winning this event. With one of her main pawns for this event taken from her, she'll have to back off for now. Send the order. Have everyone retreat from the zones. We're leaving, Theria commanded as she decided to cut her losses for now. ####. Teleporting Revel to Nimu's anchor, Shiro created a space for him to materialize in his real form so that she could help him decode the collar. Who's that? Nimue asked as she appeared next to Shiro. Oh, this is Revel. He's the storm leviathan that was previously under Theria's control. I'll be trying to free him from the runes that bind him. He'll need to materialize his true form, so I wanted a place that is spacious. Plus, this zone has healing properties, so it'll be helpful just in case he receives some wounds from the runes. Shiro explained as Nimue looked at Revel before looking at the space that she had cleared. I'm sure you don't need this much space. Even if he is a so-called storm leviathan, he's surely not that big now, Nimue said as Shiro smirked. Oh no, Nimue muttered, realizing her mistake of assuming things around Shiro. Gesturing at Revel, Shiro gave him a smirk as he grinned back. Suddenly, his form started to change, and Nimue watched this multi-headed being materialize into the clearing. His figure towered over the entire zone as he puffed out his chest in pride. That allowed Shiro to clearly see his wounds. Around the runes, his flesh had already started to decay, and after activating analysis, she could see that the damage was spreading deep into his body. How is it feeling right now? Shiro asked while inspecting the wounds. Feels as painful as you can probably guess. Damage to the soul hurts quite a bit. Revel smirked. True, it was not fun when I was missing half my soul. Shiro shrugged. Wait, what? Widening his eyes, Revel looked at her in disbelief. How is this woman even alive if she missed half her soul? If a mortal missed half a soul, even if they are a queen, they'll definitely D-dash. Before he could finish his thoughts, he felt a wave of pain shoot through his body as Shiro conjured up several runes that formed a harness around his torso. Try not to scream. I'll be decrypting your slave collar now, Shiro said as she pulled her hand back. Nanobots materialized around her hand as she started to dispel the runes little by little. As for Nimue, she had already left and was sleeping in her pool within the zone. She didn't need this kind of stress today. While Shiro was spending the next few hours decrypting the runes, Theria's zones have become a war zone. Once the queens realized that Theria had evacuated from her zones, it became a free-for-all in terms of points. Theria had the most points, so even if they don't take first spot, they'll be able to get top 3 and get a reward. Occasionally, Shiro could see the crest change ever so often as new queens claimed the zone. However, her priority was not the zone right now. She was going to help Revel. Plus, it was better if they fought over the zones since it'll take attention away from her on top of the fact that they're using resources on each other. The less tier sixs a queen has, the better for her. That way she can clear them with a single sweep of her hand. During the procedure, Shiro could tell that Revel was in intense pain, but not a single cry could be heard from him. Seeing the 9 heads held up high with pride, she couldn't help but chuckle and found it quite adorable, like a household pet. Though if she said that, it would be quite rude considering what Revel had gone through already. Looking at the final rune that was etched above his heart, Shiro narrowed her eyes and formed a mana blade over her hand. Slashing across his torso, blood and flesh splattered across the area as a scar could be seen forming on his chest, but the rune was gone. Feeling his leash disappear, Revel reared his 9 heads into the air and let out a mighty roar. The skies darkened to his cry as lightning flashed around the zone. The earth quaked to his presence as his aura was in full display. Seeing this, Shiro's lips forced a smile, since this was similar to the presence she felt from the dragon. Both were powerhouses near the demigod state. After calming down, Revel transformed back to his human self. Thank you for freeing me from my bonds. Unfortunately, that was just a hollow demonstration of my prime. With my soul wounded, it will take me a while to heal, so my capabilities are lower than what they should be. If you give me some time to heal, I will prove my power. For now, is there anything you wish for me to do? If not, I shall go heal my wounds. Revel asked as Shiro shook her head. Not right now. I will inform you if there is a task in need of your assistance. Do you want to live on my city? It is mobile and flies through the sky. It'll be a good place for you to tend to your wounds. However, do not worry. I will accept a contract that prevents me from harming your city. Unlike the slave contract that I was under previously, this is nothing. Revel smiled as he felt gratitude towards Shiro for freeing him from his chains. Nodding her head, Shiro quickly formed a contract with Revel before teleporting them to the city. Seeing the flying city hovering so close to the country undetected, Revel couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise. So many races living in harmony. Their happiness is unlike the city of slavery and cruel laws of Theria's city. Revel muttered as Shiro paused. You know where the main city is? Shiro asked, but Revel shook his head. Unfortunately, not many do. There is probably only a handful of people who know, but I do know where some of her branch cities are. Revel replied as Shiro couldn't help but feel disappointed. I see. No matter. Do you want a home like everyone else, or would you rather a home that's more accommodating for your true form? If it is not too much trouble, the second option, please. While in my true form, it is easier for me to heal my wounds. Revel smiled. Nodding her head, Shiro created another portal for them. Teleporting into the mech bay present on the second city, Shiro waved her hand and started construction on a new area. It was going to be stationed next to the mech hangar below the island, and it'll be a good place for him to stay out of sight, since she doubted that he'll enjoy being watched like a zoo animal while in his real form. There will be a wall and mana suppression barriers to hide his presence so he can have some privacy. Watching everything happen, he couldn't help but applaud her capabilities, since she seems to have quite the mastery over the power of creation. Pardon by question, but do you happen to have the divinity of creation? From the way it seems, it is not far off. There are traces of divine energy in the air as well as around you. Revel asked curiously as Shiro raised an eyebrow. I didn't think you'd be able to detect divine energy, but yes. While I am only tier 6, I have attained the state of being a demigod early. Though the situation is rather unique, so I would be unable to help you. As for my divinity, it is a branch of creation. You can say that it is a lesser copy for now. Shiro smiled as Revel nodded his head. It is fine. I understand that reaching the state of demigod is unique to many, especially if you are working with no background of divinity. I am cultivating my own, but do not know when it will be complete. Then I wish you luck. Your new home will be completed soon. Shiro chuckled before focusing her attention back on creating the room. After the room was created, Shiro allowed Revel to rest for a while before teleporting back to Nantion and resting in the command center. Laying on the chair, Shiro sighed in relief, since she was a little exhausted after clearing the runes on Revel's body. Noticing that Nantion seemed a little out of it, Shiro was somewhat curious. Laying her head on the table, she stared at him. Emin, is something up? Nantion asked as Shiro shook her head. Nothing is up with me. I was just wondering if you had something in your mind. You're not usually this quiet. Shiro asked as Nantion thought about it for a moment before sighing. It's nothing much. I'm just a bit tired. He forced a smile, but Shiro only narrowed her eyes. You know, I've spent the most amount of time with you in the past few months. Do you think you can hide it? Something is clearly bothering you. If it's not something you wish to share, you can just say so, and I won't blame you. Shiro said as Nantion scratched his cheek. Cough, it's nothing much really, he replied as his eyes darted around, saying nothing except for staring at him in silence. Shiro waited until Nantion sighed. Promise me you won't laugh then, he said as Shiro nodded. I can certainly try. Cough. I'm just a little jealous of Revel, Nantion said as he looked away with a small blush on his face. Hearing this, Shiro raised an eyebrow. You were jealous of his previous fate as a slave? No, not that. Just how you took care of him, I suppose. Nantion scratched his cheek as Shiro couldn't help but let out a small laugh. Sorry. I didn't think you were someone that would get jealous like this. Shiro waved her hand as Nantion shrugged. I'm still human, and feeling jealousy is quite normal. Nantion replied as Shiro nodded. It is, and it is quite cute, haha. Don't worry, I'm just helping the guy out. He's had his pride wounded by being enslaved to Theria after all. He just needs a break. Amen. Nodding his head, Nantion tried to focus back on the paperwork he needed to do, but couldn't focus since Shiro was just staring at him. Do you need something? Nantion asked as Shiro smiled. PFT, jealous Lil Tion. Shiro laughed as Nantion wished that he didn't tell her now. Okay, I'll stop so that you can focus on your work. Shiro chuckled and patted his head. I'm not a child, but you did get jealous. Shiro smirked, rolling his eyes. He focused on his work as Shiro stopped staring and relaxed for a while, conjuring up a screen in front of her. She glanced at the crests that stopped changing. Each of Theria's zones had been claimed by someone else, and it was pretty much one per queen. There was maybe one queen who got 2 small zones, but that was it. Looking at the satellite footage of the manpower they had stationed at the zone figured that she didn't even need to send tier SIXS, except for becoming lifelines. Out of all the queens, Theria is the most dangerous one that I can think of. Not many others can pose a threat to me. Though if I think about it, this is only the beginning of the new age, so they haven't amassed crazy amounts of power just yet. A lot of things changed since I was able to make my own anchor. Now I am able to gain power just like them, so I won't be left behind in terms of power like I was in the previous future. Shiro thought to herself as her phone suddenly rang. Sitting up, she widened her eyes in surprise. Holy sh*t Kiona actually knows how to send a text. Shiro muttered before reading what she had sent. Looking at how long it was, Shiro was wondering if she was sending a letter rather than text. Most of the text was talking about how the queens have attacked Theria after her confirmed retreat from this country. Her retreat opened up a void of power that was split amongst the other queens, with the main ones having details of their manpower explained in the text. However, most of this was what she already knew, so Shiro skimmed it quickly. Thinking about it for a moment, Shiro sent her a text back, asking if she was ready for an assault on the zones tomorrow. They'll split it so that she'll take 2 of the main zones and 2 small zones while Kiona took the rest. Seeing that her message was read immediately, Shiro waited for a while, but there was no response. Does she realize that I can see if she's read my text or not? Shiro muttered. Judging from her experience with technology, probably not. Nantion said as Shiro closed her phone for now. It'll probably take a while before she receives a text back. ####. We should be able to take the remaining zones with how much manpower we have. It's just a case of protecting it after. Kiona muttered as she was typing away while also correcting what she typed so that it sounded better. Watching this happen, Safi couldn't take it any longer. Your Highness, you have left Miss Shiro on red for an hour now. Please respond soon. And as I have said earlier, while texts are similar to letters, they don't need to be the same size, nor does it need to be elaborately worded. Miss Shiro is asking if you are ready to partake in the attack. If you are, you can just reply with I'll be there, and then a question about the time of the attack. There is no need for greetings or hopes of receiving a reply soon, Safi said as Kiona furrowed her brows. But that is too simple and crude. It is how things are now, Your Highness. Let me show you, Safi said as she pulled out her own phone. Sending a message to her friend, she showed Kiona the reply. "'Kay, I'll get the stuff ready when you come back." Yellow guy grinning and thumbs up. Kiona muttered before frowning. Can I really reply like that? Would that not seem too crude? Yes, you can, and it won't seem crude. Most people write like this now. Safi sighed. How should I reply then? ####. After Nantion had finished his work, they were about to sleep when Shiro received the text back finally. What the F***? Shiro couldn't help but mutter as she read the text. What happened? Nantion asked as he glanced over. Reading the message, he didn't know what to say as it was quite. Well, he didn't know how to describe it. KK, I'll be there. What time would it be? Smirk emoji, smirk emoji, smirk emoji. Is she replying to my question for attacking or a one-night hookup? What the F asterisk CK is with the smirks? Shiro muttered in disbelief. Hashtag. Your Highness, why did you send that so quickly? That emote is not the right one. Safi widened her eyes as Kiona furrowed her brows in confusion. What do you mean it's not the right one? Doesn't Shiro smirk like this? The emote is titled smirk, so it should be correct, Kiona said as Safi facepalmed. Your Highness, that emote means asterisk crack. Upon hearing what it meant, Kiona accidentally broke the phone as it was crushed in half. F asterisk CK. Kiona cursed, as that was not what she had wanted to say at all. Facepalming alongside Safi, she now had a new problem to deal with. The phone was broken. However, they watched as the pieces started to repair themselves. A new message could be seen on the screen. You seem to be having some trouble with the phone. I've sent you some images that may help, and it'll describe everything using terms that you are familiar with. Also, the time will be 9 a.m. We'll storm all of the zones. If you need help protecting a zone, I have some soldiers that I can send over to assist. We can talk more about this tomorrow. Reading this, Kiona glanced up at Safi. Is she making fun of me? No, I think at this point it's merely her trying to help you out. I think she discovered that you are not proficient with technology, Safi said as Kiona stayed silent. Without saying anything, she started to read the images that Shiro had sent, which described the phone as a familiar that can instantly transmit short and concise messages quickly, and how it can access a whole network of information without creating a scouting group to look for this information manually. Reading all of her explanations, Kiona gradually understood how to use a phone properly. Spending the rest of the night experimenting with the thing called the internet, she didn't get much sleep as the sun rose like usual, and it was time for the large-scale attack on the zones. Meeting Kiona not too far from one of the zones, Shiro raised her eyebrow after seeing how tired she seemed. Are you feeling okay? Shiro asked curiously as Kiona nodded her head. Yes, I am. I was just preoccupied with some important work, so I didn't get much rest. However, do not worry. I will still be able to take over a few zones. Kiona reassured with a yawn. If you say so. I didn't bring a lot with me, but this should be fine for taking the zones. From what I've gathered so far, the tier SIXS who are acting as lifelines are rather weak. Even my soldiers should be able to kill them. Shiro shrugged as she gestured towards the platoon of mech pilots who stood with serious expressions along with the Acharya army uniform, which was mostly black with some red highlights around the edges. Seeing that most of them were lower than tier 4, Kiona raised an eyebrow. Are you sure they can handle it? Yup. With some external help they will be able to. Don't worry, once you see them in action you'll understand what I mean. They're essentially a platoon of peak tier 5s that can kill a tier 6. Shiro chuckled as Kiona reluctantly nodded her head. There were doubts, but she'll see what happens for herself. Turning around, Shiro faced the platoon. Ahem, as I have said before, there isn't much pressure. Each of your groups have dedicated medics, so protect them when you attack, and you'll be fine. I expect that all of you will be able to do this. However, if things go south, you are able to send a distress signal to the specialized pilots, and I'll teleport them in. So keep your cool and remember your training. Just think of it as a Sunday walk, but you'll be dealing with another queen's forces. Shiro smiled as her speech was quite relaxed. Kiona was surprised that her soldiers were so disciplined despite the tone of her voice. Little did she know, Shiro may sound relaxed and lazy, but her training regime was nothing of the sort. She may be lazy when it comes to documents, but she had informed Nintian of everything she wanted to do, and the documentation was handled by him. The ideas still came from Shiro. All of the soldiers managed to survive her training and were some of the best in the army despite not being specialized pilots. They didn't have that kind of aptitude. Seeing that all of them were ready, Shiro smiled and turned around. Well, are all of you ready? The battle plans will be in the mechs once you summon them. Shiro smiled as they all replied with a yes, Your Highness. Hearing this, Shiro nodded and glanced towards Kiona. It's up to you what you do. My soldiers can act as the spearhead, and you claim whichever zones you want, but I'll be taking 2 main and 2 small. Rest are up for grabs. That's fine. I'm mostly here to spectate after all. With that, Shiro smiled and her aura flared. Squads 1 to 4, prepare to move out, Shiro shouted as several passive skills activated. Suddenly, a golden crest appeared behind her as it was one that belonged to the goddess of wisdom/war, Athena. The crest was that of Athena holding a spear and shield. The moment this crest appeared, faint golden auras could be seen on the soldiers as they all received a buff thanks to the blessing. All stats increased by 20% for 5 hours. Activating other passive skills that she had stored up, The platoon felt like murderous Tier 5 beasts even out of the mech. Seeing this, Kayona was taken aback since she didn't expect Shiro to be able to activate a goddess blessing. Dashing forward, each of the soldiers separated from each other as they made sure there was enough room before jumping into the sky. Summoning the mechs, nanobots surged around them as the earth shook from their weight. Watching the giant army materialize from thin air, Kayona was speechless and glanced at Shiro since all of the mechs felt like high-level Tier 6 beings. Just think of it as metal golems that you can control. I'll be watching from the sky. Shiro chuckled, camouflaging herself. Shiro disappeared as Kayona watched the platoon of mechs charge towards the zones with blades and guns in hand. Each step would leave a crater in the ground as she then glanced towards the soldiers she brought who were staring at the mechs in disbelief. Your Highness, what is our plan of action? Safi asked as Kayona glanced towards the zone. I suppose we follow behind and let them do what they want. It's not like we'll be able to do much with our current strength. Kayona sighed as she could see why Shiro was so confident. If even her soldiers were this strong, then there's no need to even think about her trusted officers. Knowing what Shiro was like, she preferred quality over quantity, so the officers would be many times stronger than what most would assume. If she has this much power at her disposal right now, killing the Shadow Empress shouldn't be too difficult. Kayona mused to herself as they started to walk towards the zones. In the distance, they could see the guards of the zone desperately trying to protect the place to no avail. Each swing of their sword cleaved apart the land, and each shot they fired broke past the strongest defenses. Despite their rampage, they were organized. The moment a powerful shield appeared, they entered a firing formation and fired a volley of shots in one concentrated area, shattering the barrier. Asterisk, boom. Suddenly, a pillar of light could be seen as a single figure rose into the air with a malevolent aura. Seeing that it was the Tier 6 lifeline, Kayona wanted to see how they'll deal with him. Before he could even attack, a few of the soldiers broke off from the formation and created magic circles around the zone. While they were activating a magic formation, 3 tank-type mechs charged forward as the lifeline summoned an axe and cleaved towards them. Blocking the strike with their shield, they parried it to the side before aiming their palm towards him. Suddenly, the arm split apart as chains shot out. Each link in the chain had runes carved on the surface as the lifeline widened his eyes in shock. The moment the chains even came close to his body, he felt his mana getting sucked away as it was used to magnetize the chains to his body. With his movements restricted, the spell formation around the zone activated as a triple-layered Tier 6 magic formation appeared in the sky. Mana converged above them, forming a single blade and shot down like lightning. Asterisk, bang. Watching the Tier 6 get restrained and subsequently killed in a few short moments, Kayona blinked her eyes just to make sure she was seeing things correctly. Even if they had information beforehand, creating such a counter in a few short hours was a little crazy. He wasn't even allowed to fire off one spell before his mana was turned against him and used as a prison. With the first zone cleared, they didn't linger and immediately dashed towards the next. Not only did they have crazy attack power, but their survivability was also off the charts thanks to the addition of the healers. They were armed with life fire along with a myriad of other defense-improving skills that Shiro had installed. With her wide plethora of skills that she had recycled over the course of her time on Earth, it was hard to find something she lacked. Defense? She has that covered. Stat upgrades? Pseudo-berserk? Attack increase? She had them all, and some of them could even be classed as S-grade skills that people could drool at the thought of obtaining. During the low levels, percentile skills were common, but this soon disappeared after a certain level. For Shiro, the skills she got at low levels were usable even in the later levels, hence why they were S-grade. In the next few hours, the mech charged through all of the zones no matter how much the enemy tried to reinforce their defense. The moment they brought out more Tier SIXS, the specialized pilots would take action and crush their hopes. Once the enemy saw the specialized pilots in action, they could see why Theria had retreated and decided to do the same, making it easy for them to claim the rest of the zones. Getting Adi, Estrella, Nantion, and Keiko to integrate themselves as lifelines, Shiro now had the most points and zones in this event, thus solidifying her position as first place. During the crusade, her soldiers gained a nickname that spread amongst the soldiers of the other queens, the Machine Legion, an unstoppable army that crushed anything in their path. Even Tier SIXS weren't safe from their power.